Hey everybody, it's JWittz here with your Pokemon trading card game Fact of the Day. These are every Thursday. They're my personal favorite segment so far that I've done, outside of the actual Prof-It episodes, and I just think that they're really cool. Now, I know eventually I'm going to run out of all the really cool basic trivia knowledge, and I'll have to dig deep for some really strange facts, but for now, since I'm talking about general stuff, I thought I would kind of continue that trend. Now, last week I talked about the 4 banned cards that we had over our time with Wizards of the Coast, and I thought it was appropriate to keep with that kind of same controversial card-changing theme with the 4 cards that were censored during the Wizards of the Coast era. So, let's check it out. Up first is Grimer from the Rocket set. Now, this card just saw a slight change, but it actually is a pretty big deal. Now, in the Japanese original card, you've got Grimer coming up from the manhole, and if you look closely at his eyes, he's looking up the skirt of the girl that's walking by him. Kind of perverted, especially strange for a children's card game, and in the English release of the card, they just put his pupils facing forward so that he's not looking at the girl at all. Now, I know that this is kind of more of a Japanese culture thing. They think it's funny. It's mentioned in a lot of different kinds of manga and anime and stuff. The act of looking up a girl's skirt, I guess, is more common there. I don't know if it's school uniforms, which are pretty mandatory or what, but just a cultural difference. Obviously, it's seen as a lot creepier here than it is there. But another interesting fact to go along with that, even though it doesn't have to do with the trading card game, is if you've ever watched the opening of the original anime series, their first theme song, the camera's panning back, it's going through Pokemon and stuff, it goes, through a girl's legs. I know that sounds weird, but if you watch it, it'll be a lot more normal, and you'll be like, oh yeah, I remember that. I think the actual lyrics of the theme song include the phrase, through that girl's skirt. I know that's weird, but just Google it. Google original Japanese Pokemon theme song, try and find out the translations. I know it's weird to think that even is possible for the start of Pokemon, but it's definitely a subject that's a lot more sensitive here, and so they edited it. Pretty good catch, because I probably wouldn't have even noticed it had I not been, told afterwards. Our next card is Koga's Ninja Trick. Now, this is another card that has some cultural barriers that kind of prevented it from being released the way that it was, and here's the issue. Now, look at this card. Look at this symbol here near the Ditto, and tell me what the first thing you think about is. Now, chances are, if you live in the United States, the only thing that you can see out of this symbol is a swastika, the infamous symbol of the Nazi Party in Germany. It's often associated with the Holocaust, internment camps, all these terrible things, and it's pretty understandable. It's a very common symbol, it's pretty easy to identify with, and especially if you grew up with some kind of Jewish heritage, it's a really sensitive symbol. So for that reason, a lot of people who opened this card originally saw it and were offended originally. It stands out pretty easily in red, but the interesting thing, though, is that it's not actually a swastika. It's actually a symbol related with Buddhism, which was established long, long before the Nazi Party. This symbol itself dates back centuries ago, and it's interesting to note that just because the image has been inverted, either horizontally or vertically, depending on which way you're looking at it, it actually takes on a completely different meaning. I think this original symbol actually denotes something more toward the notion of peace. So it's interesting that the symbol's meaning changed completely when it went to the Nazi Party and was inverted, and also interesting that a cultural barrier could make this card such a sensitive issue. Obviously, when we got it, it was replaced with a different symbol. I don't know what the new one means, but I'm sure they tried to intend to keep it as one that had a similar meaning to the original. Our next censored card is Moo Moo Milk. Now, this is one that most people don't even know about because it's just a weird change. Now, we've had Moo Moo Milk over several sets. It's actually currently legal in Heart Gold, Soul Silver Veron, and most of its images that we know have all been pretty similar. You've usually got, the bottles of Moo Moo Milk, usually with the Miltank face on it, and they usually try and incorporate some kind of Cleffa standing around with the milk. I know it's weird, it's just the way it's been presented for a while. However, one thing that's a lot weirder is if you look at the one that was released in Japan. Yeah, just let that image sink in for a little while. Now, I understand why people were sensitive to this, but it's just weird to me. It's not even offensive. So, obviously, it's sensitive because we've got the Censored who is suckling the nipples of a Moo Moo Milk bottle? if you look at the top, there's a cork on it, so it's not like this is an actual cow, which I'm sure some people think at first glance. So it's just strange to me why this card was even depicted with this kind of art. It doesn't seem very logical to have artificial cow nipples on a bottle to feed Pokemon. I don't know. Japan's a weird place. They've got strange concepts sometimes, and I think just to be on the safe side, the people who localized the cards just thought, you know, we probably shouldn't have a Pokemon suckling on nipples in this card. I know it's not a big deal, but it could be a little bit of a sensitive subject for younger kids. Probably not the best for a children's card game. Just weirds me out that they have cow nipples on a bottle. Who knew? And last but not least is one that I'm sure you've all been expecting. We've all heard about it before, and it definitely is an interesting case scenario, the Pokemon trading card game. Now, I will warn you guys, I considered whether or not I was going to put this image up on this episode. I know a lot of you guys are much younger viewers than I, and it does, in a way, it depicts nudity. It's more of a silhouette form. It's not anything that you would not see on TV or a movie, and I know that that's usually not a good excuse for parenting, but personally, I think that it's just interesting as a case scenario for the history of the Pokemon trading card game. I know I'm talking around it a lot, but if you're a kid, you got a parent maybe that knows to watch a show, have them watch it first, clear it over for you. But honestly, I don't think that it's too offensive. I don't think that it's really that bad. I think that people just make a huge deal out of it because it really is interesting, the Pokemon trading card game, and it deals with a really popular character, which is Misty. That card is Misty's Tears, and here's the Japanese version of it. Now, it's kind of hard to tell because of how dark it is, but it's assumed that Misty in this picture is in the nude and holding her Staryu and crying. Now, that in general is, I guess you could say, pretty strange. As far as Pokemon card art goes, you really don't get anything close to a sensitive subject like that. And I know that like everything's covered. It's not like this grotesque pornographic image, but it's still a big deal. Misty's a popular character, and seeing her anything close to unclothed is definitely going to cause a big uproar around the fan community. Now, obviously, this kind of card would never fly in America, and we got a completely redone image for our Misty's Tears, but it is interesting to know. The card's been kind of discussed as a legend among sources as far as the baddest Pokemon card. As a kid, I knew a couple of people who got those cards from Japan, and they bragged about them, and it was something that you giggled about around the schoolyard. But personally, I don't think it's horrible. I'm pretty sure that the Pokemon anime has dealt with nudity before. I think there was a scene with Misty and Ash at gender-divided hot springs, stuff like that. So, I mean, it's been dealt with before, but to have that kind of art on a Pokemon trading card, which, you know, was handled by kids as young as 6 or 7 years old, I can definitely see why this one was censored. Anyways, I just thought it was really interesting to look over different cards, see the reasons why they've been changed, and it's also interesting to note that, once again, all these cards were released over the Wizards of the Coast era, and they were actually all released within a very close time period. I think these cards were all within 1999 to 2000 or 2001, so it is interesting to note the art direction that the Japanese went through and how sometimes they made things that probably wouldn't have worked as well in a more sensitive audience over here in North America. Now, since then, there haven't really been any cards that have been banned as far as any inappropriate or sensitive issues, so again, it's interesting to look at how cards were back in the day. Now, next week, instead of censored cards or banned cards, I'm going to talk about error cards. There's going to be a lot of them, and it might be a long episode depending on how many I try to include, but I thought that censored cards and error cards were kind of a different category, so thought I'd talk about them today. Hope you guys appreciate the insight into this kind of controversial issue, and hope you enjoyed today's Fact of the Day. Tune in next week for another one, and tune in tomorrow for an episode of Prof-It.